he explains, "Ubederech remes tispara parshal zeh derech. Hine kol binyan ha'olam v'kiyumo." He says, the structure of the world and its continuous existence, totally b'maiseh am b'nei Yisrael. It's all depend on the behavior and the actions of the Jewish people. Im yativu darkeichem ha'olam kayom. If the Jews, they behave and their actions are appropriate and proper, the world exists. V'yismachu hashamayim shel haaretz, as it says, the heavens will rejoice and the earth will have a degree of happiness. Gam Hashem Elokeinu yismach v'yoel b'nu, and Hashem will also rejoice with us. V'yusha darkam shel Yisrael tolui b'nitzochen yitzara, and the appropriate path which the Jews take is determined whether we beat our evil inclination, whether we're victorious over him or not, whether he takes over our lives, or we dictate and we drive him out of our life. When you come from the spiritual world, the soul comes from the spiritual world into this world, you have to be ready for battle. You have to be ready for war. He says you need tremendous amount of inner conviction and strength to bring about this victory. It's not a simple victory. When we speak about a war, this is the war. You have to realize when you're coming to this existence, you're here for battle. 24-hour, 24/7, every moment of your life. As is, who's the powerful one? The one who's able to suppress his inclination. That's the greatest degree of gvura power. It's not you're entering into battle. This is the ultimate battle. La means it's the equivalent of hey hayudiya. This is the ultimate battle that you're entering into. We'll go further. The Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin that we find right at the time of the Mabul, after the Mabul, Hashem says he will not destroy the world again. He yetzer lev odov ra min urov. The inclination of man is evil. Min urov means from his youth. Mishen ninar me'imo. From the moment you're cast from your mother's womb, the yetzer ra, the evil inclination, already attaches itself to the child, has influence on the child from the moment it's cast from the womb. So the Maral of Prague, when we study Periovos on this, the Maral of Prague explains that why does Rabbi Yochanan only says the yetzer hara only comes upon the child when he's cast from the womb? Before he's cast from the womb, the yetzer hara has no influence. The Gemara tells us that before the child enters into this existence, before he's born, he's the equivalent, even though he's physical, there's a soul and there's a fetus. He's in a spiritual realm. He sees from one end of the world to the other. The angel teaches him the Torah's entirety and he retains it all. And the moment he enters into his existence, he forgets everything he was taught. And life's challenges begin. Now he has to recall everything that he was taught in utero by the Malach. So Maral explains the yetzer hara, the evil inclination, is only permitted to come upon the person because he's completed. When the child is complete, until he's born, he's not completed. For instance, God forbid, if a person aborts a child before he's born, one is not liable for the death penalty. Why? Because it's a fetus. An unborn child is not called a nefesh, a full nefesh. Torah says one's only liable for murder if he takes a nefesh. Pre-birth, it's not called a nefesh. So when does it become nefesh? When is a person considered a full human being? When he's born. So the yetzer hara, Hashem does not allow the evil inclination to come upon the child until he's fully developed and takes on the status of a human being. That's when he's born. So in formation and development, he has none. So he says, That's why it's Mishniner Me'imo, when the child is cast from his mother's womb, only then he's Ra. Then the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is permitted to have influence on him. So he says something phenomenal. He says, if a person lives his life, now that you're an adult, you're living your life, and you live your life in a way where you're always in development, and you always live as if you're not fully developed. Let's say you study Torah. Every moment you fully invest in serving Hashem. That means there's no moment of respite, unless the respite is for the sake of Torah, but to take off, just to take off, because you feel, once you go into a mode, a mental state, I'm finished. I finished my day of learning today. I finished my day. The moment you say you finished, the Yetzer Hara has influence over you. But if you're engaging it, you're still developing, and I'm only taking the break because I have to sleep, because I have to relax. So that means I'm still in formation. I'm still developing. When you're in the development state, I'm not complete. But if you live your life that the moment you feel you're complete, the evil inclination has influence on you. That's the moral of Prague. Just as the evil inclination has an influence on the child before he's born, because he's in development. So if a person lives his life, every moment he's in development, and he never feels he's achieved a level of completion, the Yetzer Hara has no permission to influence that person. That's the moral of Prague. So when you're born into this existence, but it's interesting, a child before he becomes an adult has no liability. But nevertheless, the influence of the Yetzer Hara, in terms of all the inclinations, the child is being drawn in that direction. So when the child becomes bar mitzvah, for the first 13 years of his life, the evil inclination has influence on that child. And the level of mitzvah that he does, the Gemara tells us, the value of a mitzvah, once you commanded, you're obligated, has greater value than before you commanded. So the innate value, spirituality of the mitzvah, what it generates, as a child, it doesn't generate the same level of spirituality as an adult. Because as an adult, as Tosas explains in Kedushin, since the Yetzer Hara is sparring with you, and we say the Fum Tzara Agro, based on the level of challenge, that determines the value of the innate value of the mitzvah. Therefore, when you're an adult, the value of the mitzvah is greater than when you're not obligated. Because the Yetzer Hara is only trying to trip you up when you're obligated, that you should not fulfill your obligation. So a child, before he's an adult, where he has no obligation, the evil inclination is not trying to trip up the child, so therefore the challenge of a child is not the same challenge as an adult. As a result of that, the innate value of the mitzvah doesn't generate the same level of spirituality as an adult. So I'm saying it's interesting. So here the evil inclination has total influence over the child from the moment he's cast from the womb of his mother. A child is a physical being until he starts developing at a certain point in terms of intelligence, have a sense of right and wrong, have a sense of understanding. As a result of this, the Torah says a father has an obligation to teach his son Torah, And we have the concept, rabbinically, there's a concept of chinuch. A parent, the moment the child reaches a certain stage in development, as the Brisa says in Sukkah, when a child is able, has the mechanical skills that he can hold a lulav, you should buy him a lulav. To not, it's more than educate him. It's already to develop a certain pattern of behavior within the context of mitzvah. When he's able to put on tzitzis, you buy him a pair of tzitzis, although he's not obligated. This is all mentoring. A parent has an obligation to mentor a child, is rabbinical, to actually, that it should become part of his routine, because once it becomes routine, even as an adult, he's going to continue doing it. But again, that's the counter, the effect of the evil inclination, because the child is literally being victimized from the moment he's born until he has the ability to be an adult, to stand up. So that's what he says. The greatest battle in a person's life is the moment he's born. You're entering into an existence where this is the ultimate battle. And who's Oyevecho? He says, Vomer alo Yevecho. You're going to battle against your enemy. This is the ultimate enemy. This is not like a person who's a warrior, he's going to conquer a city. And when you become disgusted, eventually you reach a point, you stop battling, you stop fighting. You have to understand we're in battle, that the moment you let up for a moment and your opponent sees any degree of weakness or any degree of not being cognizant of the moment, he will kill you. You have to understand that's the type of opponent you. That's the nature of this enemy. So what the Torah tells, although humanly it's impossible to beat this opponent, this enemy, one has a special siyata d'shmaya. Humanly, physically, he could outwit you. He could outsmart you. He could turn day into night and night into day. But if factually a person merits siyata d'shmaya, Hashem will give your enemy into your hands. That if you take initiative and you want to succeed and win and beat this opponent, you'll be able to, if you have that interest. The Chofetz Chaim writes, similar, we find that the Gemara tells us that Yetzer Hara is compared to a fly, a zvuv. A fly, if you swish it away, what happens? It doesn't go away. You swish it away on one side, it goes to the other side. As much as you try to swat it, if you don't kill it, it just keeps coming back. The Yetzer Hara, as long as you're alive, as the Rambam says in teshuva, till the last moment of your existence was subject to its influence. Till the last moment. That means as much as we try, as much as we grow, as much as we advance, every moment of existence was subject to his influence. So it's an ongoing battle from the moment we come into this existence till we leave this existence. And that's why the Rambam says that a person can do teshuva till the last till the last breath of his life. Because till the last breath, you're in a position of making a choice. And if you make the right choice, even if a person's a rush his whole life, if the last moment of your existence, a person has remorse and makes a commitment that if he would live, he would not continue this type of behavior, the negative record is completely obliterated. And when he comes before Bezin Shel Maldo, the heavenly court, they will not mention any of his failings throughout his life. To that degree, because a person is bechira, because he chose to be in this mind state that he regrets everything he ever did in his life on the negative side. And the same thing is true chas v'sholom on the positive side. Person comes to the end of his life and he regrets that he ever did a mitzvah, God forbid. And he says, I wish I never did any mitzvah. Although he was a tzaddik until that point. The moment he leaves this world, that record doesn't exist any longer. And when he comes before Bezin Shel Maldo, there's no mention of any of his good deeds. Regardless, even if every moment of his life was invested in that, if he regrets it, he wipes out the record instantaneously. This is the challenge. And the Yetzer Hara is able to do it. If you remember, we had said that the Akedah was the greatest achievement of Avraham Avinu. And that's what we have going for us on Rosh Hashanah, that the ultimate day of prosecutions, the day of judgment is Rosh Hashanah, it's Yom Adin. And the Sultan prosecutes and audits that record to the nth degree. And the moment we blow the shofar, which is the Akedah, he's silenced. That is the value of the Akedah. He's shut down. He cannot prosecute anymore. That's how overwhelming the schus of the Akedah is. And Avram was ecstatic. When the Malach told him, your children will be this, whatever it is, you have nothing to worry now. Because you did not withhold your son from me, you're willing to sacrifice your son. Therefore, forever, your children will be special, you'll have special progeny. Your children will only be the people of God because of the Akedah. When he comes home after, and he's on a high from a video, what is he confronted with? He finds out that his partner in life, Sari Menu, passed away. Why? Why did she die? Because of the Akedah. I mean, If she was meant to pass away, she passed. Why did that have to be the reason? You know why? That's the challenge. Could you imagine? Here you were willing to give it all away. The child that was born to you when you're 100 years old. And now at 37, you're asked to sacrifice. Are you willing? What's the thank you? The thank you is when you come home, God forbid, he finds out his wife passes away because she couldn't deal with the fact that her son was being killed. Is that a thank you? So let's say Avram at that moment would have said, if that's the case, I regret what I did. If that was the cause of my wife's death, I regret everything. If he ever said that, what it would be? That Kate is out the window. It's as if he never met the challenge of the Akedah. To discuss Akedah doesn't exist. That's the reason why Satan confronted him with that particular situation at that moment to undo and to nullify what the Akedah was all about. And in life, very often, people have challenges and we make tremendous progress. And all of a sudden, we're confronted, God forbid, with a challenge, which could be very painful and irksome, you can't imagine. And you say, out of disgust, you say, something, if that's the case, I regret I ever did it. I wish I was never here. I wish I never had these relationships. And if a person allows himself to be pulled into that, chas v'shalom, it's all over. You're actually obliterating the whole past. That's what you're doing. Before Rosh Hashanah, we nullify all our vows, our oaths, or any levels of commitment that, of course, if we had failed or violated any of those areas, the liability is very serious, and we don't want to go into the Yom HaDin, Day of Judgment, with this level of liability. So by nullifying the vows, the oaths, or whatever levels of commitments that we were committed to, we don't have that claim against us, because it's a very serious claim. And after we make the declaration before the panel of the three, we make a disclaimer that any vow or oath or whatever it is that we should make in the future, it has no value. It's pre-nullified. That's what we say. Nevertheless, every year we do Hataras Nedarim. So this question which is asked: if you're ready with Moshe Modah, if you've made the disclaimer the previous year, what do we have to again stand before the panel to nullify the oaths? We already said the previous year, anything in the future we should say we don't mean it's from day one. It's nothing. It has no value. So the Rishonim and the Nedarim explain, the commentators, because what happens during the year when you made the oath, you had in mind that you want to nullify the disclaimer. So since there's a chance you nullify the disclaimer, if that's the case, the oaths and the vows and everything else takes on value. So to cover that possibility, what do? We nullify all these various areas of speech. That it should not be a question. We're going to be held accountable for whatever or any of these levels of failing. That's the understanding. So Ramban writes very often, a person, God forbid, before he dies, sometimes they suffer tremendous pain, illness, mental, whatever it is. And a person sometimes relives his life, those last moments. And sometimes a person come out with a statement at the end of his life, which is literally unconscionable statement. And he could say, because of this, I regret that I did this, and I regret I did that. And if you would say before he dies, he regrets it all, he could wipe out his whole life in a moment. So there's something from the Ramban, it's called Mesiras Modah. A person, when he's still rational, he makes a disclaimer that if I should ever say something and before he dies, whatever it may be to indicate that he's regretting anything that he ever did, he's making a disclaimer and it has no value. So that in case at a certain moment he may come out with an unacceptable statement, which would cause tremendous damage, undo his life, he's making a disclaimer that that statement means nothing. To be protected from this moment. That's what it is. Because the Yetzer Hara could topple the apple cart in a second to turn the world upside down. As a result of that, that's the disclaimer you make, not to be drawn into this situation where everything's in jeopardy. And he writes in Shari Tshuva, he speaks about there so many levels of tshuva. There's remorse, and there's angst, there's crying, there are various levels of pain. And the level of remorse, the depth of remorse, it covers, there are many levels of which you have to come. Are you doing mi'avo? Are you doing mi'yiro? Out of love? Are you doing because you fear of punishment? Qualitatively speaking, you understand, that doesn't. And he equates it. It's analogous. You have a garment which is embedded with dirt. You take that garment and you soak it in water, even if the water has detergent in it. Ultimately, that water is going to turn a dirty color because just soaking doesn't take it out. But to be able to extract every bit of uncleanness from the fiber, you have to really rub that garment well and wring it and do it many times over to get every bit of that uncleanliness out of that garment. And that's exactly what tshuva is. You have to literally focus on it, delve into it, expunge it, experience pain of what you did, that literally almost you can't live with yourself. That's what we call tshuva shlema. You know, every day we say Hashivenu Vilus Yosecha, V'Hazreim Tshuva Shlema Lefanecha, in the bracha of tshuva. Bring us back. What's tshuva shlema? I did tshuva. What's tshuva shlema? What a complete tshuva is. That you meet the criteria of what tshuva is. But I had remorse. I made a commitment. I feel bad. I can't sleep at night. Nobody knows what tshuva shlema is. And what about if you have multiple sins? And one of the things that it's cited, let's say we do tshuva for Lashon Hara. And we say it in Tefillah Zaka. We say it in Tefillah Zaka before Kol Nidre. When you do tshuva, if you speak Lashon Hara once, do you know the extent of tshuva you have to do for that one infraction, that one transgression? And what about at the end of the year, you spoke 1,000 times this year? You have an obligation to tshuva for each time you spoke Lashon Hara. Do you recall every time you spoke what you shouldn't have said? And every time you ate something and you ate it with the wrong intent, or the endless moments that you didn't study Torah. Every moment you didn't study Torah, each time was another transgression. So you have to address every moment. Or do we address? We speak in generalities, classifications. I have remorse, it has value, but does it totally reinstate the person? You have to go over it over endless times, because we're not addressing every moment, which is only addressing that classification of sin, but not the individual sin each time. What are you taking back? He took part of your neshama, the Yetzer Hara. He compromised with spirituality. You're taking back what's rightfully yours. When you do tshuva and you want to correct it, you're taking back, you're regaining ground that originally was your ground. When you came into this existence, you were pure. He caused us to sin. That means we gave up ground. For Shavisa Shivyo, Hashem will give us the ability to regain that. He has many souls that are captive. All the people that, unfortunately, who have given up Yiddishkeit, who have assimilated, he captured all those souls. And even one's own sin. How much of that, of your neshama, has he taken captive? You will see in captivity a beautiful woman. Omar Eisha Samoch Pirish Neshama Sodom. It's referring to the neshama. The most beautiful part of a human being is his soul. The Yetzer Hara only has influence on the neshama only once it's come into the human being. Shemimenu hu lokho b'shevid. Nefesh hu isho. V'koro luzu yifas toar. Ki nefesh yofe ad ba'od. The nefesh is something which is precious and beautiful. Elish nisnaveles v'masim roim. It becomes ugly and inappropriate through its evil actions. But when he is victorious over his evil inclination, he will appreciate the innate value of his neshama. How beautiful and how pleasant it is. I'll give you an example, God forbid. Could you imagine a Jewish woman who's refined and she's turned into who knows what, into a streetwalker? You know what that is? God forbid. People have given up the Yiddishkeit and they behave today in a way no different than a non-Jew in every sense of the word. What they eat, what they behave, and everything under the sun. It's painful to see it. And especially if originally she comes from when you know she comes from a special family and she was observant. And today she behaves in the most, and she looks grotesque. I'm giving an extreme example. She's tattooed, she has body piercing, and she's become literally a slut. You know what that means? And you're able somehow to rehabilitate her, to restore her to her original state. That there's no remnant of that original, all that, whatever that life was. What is this? It's an unbelievable accomplishment. Read about that, the rebellious son, Pasuk Yudches, Kiyel Ish Ben Sora Moreh. A person has a son who's a rebellious son. Rashi said, what's Soreh? Sormin Aderech. He's gone off the path. Umoreh, Sarev, B'divrei Oviv. He's defiant. He does not follow the dictates of his father. He has no regard. And he doesn't listen, heed the voice of his father and mother. V'yishu also, v'lo yishma aleim. Rashi says, the parents take him to court and they give him malchus. There's a child between the age of 13 and 13 and 3 months, because he's a ben. Ben means he's still a semi-child. He's just entered into his time of obligation. He's 13. And he's behaving this way. He has to steal from his parents, and he purchases meat, a certain amount of meat, and he drinks and buys wine, and he begins a certain type of behavior. This child, the reason why he's put to death, because ultimately where this kind of behavior will lead, ultimately with this addiction, he's going to consume all his parents, what they have, all their assets, and he has to support his addiction. He has an addiction to drinking and eating, this gluttonous behavior, and his parents can't underwrite it. What does he do? He goes out to the crossroads of the he becomes a highwayman. And he commits murder. To what? To support his habit. Literally like a drug addict, God forbid. The Torah says better he should die relatively innocent at this moment rather than allow him to go down that path. The Torah already is forecasting where he's going. So what if the parents take him to the elders of the city, to Bezdin, and this is after he becomes a repeated offender. This point is very important. The members of the community will stone him, and he will die, and you will expunge the evil from your midst. And people will take heed. Okay, now, so there's a famous Gemara, Mishnah in Sanhedrin, the Ben Sora Mora situation. Did it ever exist? Did it ever happen? So the Gemara says, Ben Sora Mora, lo hoyo v'lo osed lios. It never happened, and it will never ever happen. Why not? Why will it never happen or ever happen? The child becoming addicted, that will happen. But that the parents are able to bring him to Bezdin, because there are many things which you have to meet certain criteria for this child. And it's not, it says he does not listen to the voice of his father and mother. That means the voices have to be identical. The voice of a woman, the voice of a man are not the same. It's not the same voice. They have to look alike. There are many things which are impossible. As a result of that, to meet all the prerequisites to become a Ben Sora Mora, it's not possible to meet those prerequisites. Therefore, lo hoya, it never happened, never will happen. So the Mishnah asks, so why doesn't the Torah state it? Right? What's the point of stating it if it's not relevant? Samar says, lidrosh l'kabel schar, to study it, and you should receive reward for studying it. So the Rishonim, the commentators ask, I mean, so for the sake of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, you can study anything. The Mishnah tells us in Brochos that if you say Kriya Shema after its time, you're credited for what? For Talmud Torah. Although you no longer fulfill the mitzvah of Kriya Shema, but Kriya Shema psukim in the Torah. So if it's religious kabel scharis for the study of Torah, you can study anything. Why does the Torah write this narrative if this narrative is not relevant? It's not reality. That's the question we show them ask. So what does it mean, literal kabel schar? What was the Akedah? The Akedah is Avram as a child at the age of 100, and Hashem says, I want you to bring him as a sacrifice. It's a burnt offering. You know what this means? A person to give up his son and end his son's life. Okay? That's the Akedah. The Torah is saying over here, this child was just bar mitzvah. His behavior is not acceptable. He steals from his parents, he buys meat, he buys wine. So the Torah says, see this child? He's destined to become a gangster, he's going to commit murder. He has to be reined in, and if not, he has to be put to death now. For a parent to accept that, you say, you know something, child's immature. It's immaturity. He attributes it to immaturity. These are not necessary characteristics that ultimately it's going to lead to that. So a parent, because of his love for his child, what does he do? Regardless of what the Torah says, he says, I understand what you're saying, but I believe I have faith in my child, in our parent. We'll be able to influence him. He shouldn't go there. And this is already, he's become a repeated offender. But if you don't begin the process, your child's protected. You have to take your child to Bezdin. If the parents don't take the child to Bezdin, the whole process of Ben Sora doesn't begin. So the parents have to inform the court of the misbehavior of the child. And then he violates it. And again, they bring it back. That means they believe what the Torah says, you have to bring him. But in some way, you could delude yourself to say, that's not reality. We believe we're going to beat it. That a person's able to negate himself and submit to the perspective of the Torah, that the reality is what the Torah is not what you think, that's the equivalent of the Akedah. If your love for God supersedes your love for your child, that is a semblance of the Akedah. That's Lidrush Shel Kabel Schar. We're not talking about the mitzvah of studying Torah. For studying Torah, you could have said Kriya Shema over 25 times, or any pasuk in the Torah. Literally, you should interpret it, and you should have the takeaway. The takeaway is, as Avram was willing to give up his son because his love for Hashem surpassed and superseded the love for his son, over here, if he has love for God, and God is saying, this is the reality, you negate your own feelings for your son, and God's perspective, evaluation is correct. That's the takeaway. How many times, we speak about tough love, today, the term, I don't know if that terminology is even relevant anymore. Tough love. People, they give into their kids, and that ultimately they are at fault. Because they created an environment for the child to go in that direction. Well, how could we rein in on it? We're not loving parents. Sometimes that love will destroy your child. Because if you understand how you have to raise the child, and you have to be firm with him and stern with him, and you don't let him do certain things. I'll give you examples. You know, I'm not here to pass judgment on anybody. You go to shul. I was once in Englewood, and there's somebody who was there who was once a member of of Yad Avram, and he has his 18-year-old son, and I see it's Friday afternoon, mincha. Shabbos is beginning in the shul. His son says Shmon Esrei, literally 20 seconds. He walks in, walks out. So I went over to the father. He says, is there a problem? He says, I'm thankful he puts on tefillin. I said, you ever speak about the way he's saying the Shemon Esrei? 20 seconds in and out, he says, thank God he puts on tefillin. I'm just telling what the father said to me. You understand? And therefore, his son doesn't show up Shabbos morning. Doesn't show up, period. Thank God he puts on tefillin. You understand? We're talking about something. Something, where it came from, I don't know. Whether it's the school, whether it's the friends, whether it's the parents, I don't know. But that's what we're dealing with. So how do you deal with it? Sometimes you have to really be very stern and rein in on the kid in the way you don't know. It's not pleasant. So there's no question you have to seek out professional advice from a rabbi, from a psychologist, from whatever it is, how to deal with it. But do people seek it out? They don't. They don't. They just let it go. But if you value that to that degree, you don't leave a stone unturned. How to deal with the problem. But people, they let it go. Other people won't. They want to know exactly how to better the situation, how to rectify it, how to correct it.